Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining. I apologize about the little issues. I'm not used of doing meetups like this, so pardon with me while we're all learning this this thing here. Um, So essentially, today we had the DevZat box originally planned, but after the past week with the Log4j bug that came out, decided to take a different format and let my friend Julien have a little rest tonight with his family. So hopefully, you guys will understand that, and it's not too big of a bummer. So, but I have a presentation that I think you guys gonna like. Um, so essentially, I'll on the agenda today. The box that we're gonna be doing is Bounty Hunter. So it's an active box. That's why the meetup is private. Now, also, we'll do a little bit of introduction for those who don't know me, and we will talk about the recent issues that got in the way for our meetup for the Log4j, and I mean I'll take part of the blame as well because I'm not set up to actually accommodate the guests right now, so it's not all the Julien's fault. So I'm heavily to blame, to be honest. So I'll set that up for next month. So hopefully next month in January we can have it. If not, we'll push it for February and we'll have something different next month. So I should be posting what we will be doing shortly here. Um, all right, so for those who don't know me, my name is Tony Roy. I also go by the name of Cyco, which is a short for Psycho Slave. I have my EGPT. I'm currently doing pen testing and software development on the side, and that's basically me for those who don't know me. Now, with the current meetups, we're looking for volunteers. If you want to present, even if it's not something you want to do full time, if you just want to taste it, get the taste of it, by all means, reach out. My email cyco@cyco.ca, fairly easy to remember, and just hit me up on there, and I'll be more than happy to see what we can do to accommodate you and help you share your wealth of knowledge with the community here. Um, Now, I've already said that, so I'm not 100% sure. I haven't confirmed with Julien yet, but chances are that we would be doing this month's presentation next month on January. So there's no definite date, or even if that's the presentation we're gonna go forward. But I'll keep you guys posted, and I guess we'll see. Um, if not, I'll have something else for you guys. Don't worry about it. Now, we all heard about the Log4j or Log4j, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's always been Log4j. Yeah, I had a little issue with Nginx as well. So, took me a couple of years before I adopted the actual name. So we'll see. So for now, I'll call it Log4j. Pardon me to the developers, that's not the name you intended it to be called. Now, what is Log4j? Well, it's a Java-based logging utility, um, which is now a project of part of the Apache Software Foundation. It was developed by some guy there, and it was taken over a couple of years ago. It was initially released about 20 years ago, Um, and the vulnerability that came out or that was publicized about last week was discovered by the Alibaba security team and not by the Minecraft on the Minecraft server as publicly advertised. So I apologize about for the Minecraft gamers. I thought the vulnerability came from them, but yeah. So they were testing some stuff back in November, and the last Friday of November, roughly around that date, and did it. That's when it was initially reported, but it was only disclosed publicly last week. So that took about 2 weeks after the initial reported date to be disclosed. Now, why is it bad? You're gonna ask. Well, because the library is extensively used, it's present in a lot of the project, whether you realize if it's there or not. I mean, chances are, if it's using Java, your application likely uses the log4j for logs, and it's very neat utility, to be honest. So it simplifies the life of the developer, and you got this class that you can include and essentially do the job that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it's pretty neat. The vulnerability was given the name CVE 2021 44 228, and it was classified as a CVSSV3 with a score of 10, which is the highest. So essentially it gives us remote code execution on the box. So it's pretty nasty. If your box is vulnerable to that, you want to do something about it. So you probably seen these payloads over here. So what I'll do is let me show you on the screen here. Um, so if I show you on the screen, you've probably seen those GNDI payloads here. Right. Well, my bash doesn't understand it, so that's why it's red like that. But I just wanted to paste it, so you guys probably seen that those payloads floating around on the internet, and I mean, uh, from a network point of view, I recommend that you do your test. If you're ever going to test a system, I recommend you do it on V6 or on a dual stack host. And the reason is, well, at least if you get V6, you're gonna be able to see the data coming back on V6 and or V4. So um, if V4 doesn't work, usually, I mean, the way that V6 IPv6 is configured, usually it's set up as the default. I mean, a lot of people don't use it as the default. It's called the broken V6 setup. So where your system will prefer the V4 over V6, but that's not the intended way. Usually your system will prefer V6. So if V6 is ever enabled on your system, it will go out on that first. It will try to reach out to the internet. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is a lot of people, they don't even know they have IPv6 on their network. I mean, this stuff is pretty old. It's been around for a couple of years. We're about midway in the migration. There's a big migration going from IPv4 towards IPv6, and we're about halfway through. So we have sites are mostly dual stack. We can access them through V4 or V6, and the hosts that can't be accessed through V6 usually have like a gateway you can access them. So that's like the second phase. Basically, we're in the second phase. The first phase was a couple of years ago, about 10, 15 years ago. So and then this the first second phase started essentially on World IPv6 Day. I don't know if you guys recall it. I don't remember the exact date there, but yeah, essentially the World IPv6 Day is when the second phase of the deployment started. And there's 4 phases in total. And I mean, all in all, it's because of the size of the internet. This has been done before when we migrated to IPv4. There was something else before that, and when we migrated to IPv4, there wasn't as much host on online, so it wasn't as much of a problem. It wasn't done overnight. I can tell you that as much, but it wasn't as much of an issue. So that's why this migration is happening over a span of multiple years now. And again, the reason I'm bringing that up is because a lot of network engineers, they've been trained on IPv4. They don't even know IPv6. I mean, some of them know they exist, but they think they might not get an IP from their provider. It might been the case in the past where they didn't get IP from the provider, but more and more internet service providers are giving IPv6. So essentially, I'm recommending that you don't put an IPv4 host in there or an IPv6. You just go with a host that's dual stack. You're going to see the DNS query. If you look up on the DNS server, you're going to see those queries coming in. You're going to see those LDAP connections coming in. You can even specify a port over here if you wanted to specify just a port 11234. Did have that port. So that's essentially the payload. Now, if you already ran this and you got like a DNS query back, doesn't necessarily mean that you got exploitation. Now, you need to. I recommend you don't jump to the conclusion and you perform thorough tests to figure out whether the system is exploitable or not. Now, so what you would do is you would change your payload, let's say, to something like this. So I'm just gonna add a couple letters here after the HTB Moncton here, and essentially I would be pasting another code, and that would tell us whether the backend, whatever is interpreting, like, is looking that host name, if it's actually running code or not. So what I recommend is something very common. I mean, the system, if it's vulnerable, it would definitely understand that sysjava version. Essentially, that will give you the Java version. So if you get a DNS query back and you get a Java version within Moncton and the ZZZ, for example, in this host, well, it means that you got a vulnerable system on hand. Now, if you don't and you get just the zz.z.cyco.ca as a lookup, that means you just got like a web, like a firewall, or an IDS, like an intrusion detection system, something in the back end that's just resolving those hosts, looking for IPs, and just checking things up and assessing what kind of queries you're giving to them servers. So, and that would mean that the host you're testing is not likely vulnerable or not vulnerable at all. So now I recommend you don't test those payloads on live system that you don't have permissions to do those tests on. That's considered hacking. It's against the law and not considered ethical. So I wouldn't do that. Now, there's also different payloads you could run. Like there's the sys one is one of them. You could have something like the environment home would basically give you the home user of the or the home directory of the user essentially. Um, so that's different couple of things. I mean, you can look up the GNDI documentations, very extensive essentially. Now, the first part of this payload is GNDI. Now, what is GNDI? GNDI is the Java Naming and Directory Interface, and it's an API. It's an application programming interface, and that it provides name and directory functionality to application. Basically, to Java-based application, and it will also allow you to perform connection to external hosts, so you'd be able to do like queries like not only those held apps you've seen, but you'd be able to do those HTTP queries, the DNS. You'd be able to do DNS. You'd be able to do the LDAP you've seen. You'd be able to do MySQL. You'd be able to query a bunch of things with those things. And I mean, you can think for a logging application, it's very useful because now you can query all those different resources on the network. Now that this is basically where the issue came about, and now that feature as the GNDI resolve that is present in log4j actually dates back way from 2013, and over the years there's been a couple of bugs or report about things that we're doing things inconsistently and weird. For example, this guy here wanted to disable lookup on date because he would try to put a text, and it was a percentage. Essentially, the text looked like something like this. So date, and then he had something else after that, and close that. Essentially, the Java application or the log4j was trying to resolve that. So in his log, he would never see what he wanted to see. He would always get resolved in weird errors. That was one of the errors, but there was a couple of them. So over the years, I mean, I think it could have been possible to that someone have known about the problem before and just didn't tell anyone. So that's why it's this important, and this bad. Now, and it's so present on so many systems as well. Like I said earlier, that's why it makes it so bad. Now, how you would prevent it? Well, the recommendation right now is to patch to log4j 2.16.0 from whatever version you were using before. Like none of the version, none of the trees. I think there's a 2.12 if you're using Java 7. But you also need to upgrade to the latest version on that path. But if you're on Java 8, which I think you should be, but for whatever reason, some people still on Java 7. But Java 8 2.16.0 is the version you want to be on. Now, so today we'll be doing a relatively easy Linux box. I'm just gonna spawn it up here. Well, it's called. You heard me. I talked about it. It's basically called BountyHunter. It's fairly easy. I apologize that it was supposed to be a box that was a little bit harder, but yeah, I already had that presentation ready from the HackTheBox Ottawa. Pardon me if I ramble a little bit. I'm just putting up that instance here in the lab. of the Bounty Hunter. I just realized I did not do that. Alright, so Bounty Hunter. I'm gonna spawn this machine while it's spawning up. Just gonna go to the presentation. So like I said, it's really easy. It's an easy box. While it can be tricky if you don't pay attention. Now it was released in July 24th, 2021 by EG Dev. This box shows that not only you need to know the tools, but you also need to know how to operate them. If you, I know you heard you hear the term think outside the box quite often, but I think this is a perfect example here where you're required to do so. On this box, you will need to read basic code. You will need to do that in both in PHP and Python language. I know that a lot of people get turned down when it comes to writing or even reading code, but rest assured, this box does not need you to have advanced coding skills. As long as you can read code and be able to make changes to the code, you will be that you find online. You should be able to succeed and hack this box. Now, the skills that you are required to do this. Well, you're gonna need to know how to do basic HTTP requests, so basic knowledge of HTTP requests, knowledge on how to work with proxy tools such as Burp, Zap, and Foxy. But not limited to those. I mean, you can use your own if you have others you're more used to. In our case, we'll be using Zap. Essentially, make things different, but for this channel, I don't think it's that much different because I've been using Zap on here quite a lot. You need base64 knowledge. Be comfortable recognizing base64, encoding and decoding base64 strings and files. You'll need to know about XML external entity, XSC. Know what XML is. Know how to execute an XSC payload. Basic PHP knowledge, again, very basic. Just say as long as you're able to read PHP code. And Python, as long as you're able to dabble with Python. I mean, by no means a Python expert, but yeah, I can still do this. So if I can do it, I think you guys can do it. You just need to write or at least try different commands that you find in your Google searches. And now the tools we're going to be using is I'll be using Nmap, our beloved Nmap, just to do port scans and figure out what's running on this box. And I'll once I've done enumerating the tools there, I realized that I forgot to share the documentation with you guys, so I'll do that in a second here. So we'll also be using Ferox Buster just to fuzz the system. I like Ferox Buster because it's colorful. It's also multi-threaded, so it works pretty fast. And we're going to be using Zap. I like to use Zap because it's free. It pretty much does everything that Burp can do. And again, it's free. So you don't have to pay for those special premium. That's what I like about it. There's also optional, but I'm gonna be using Foxy Proxy here, so just so I usually switch between Burp and Zap quite a bit, so just easier for me. And CyberChef. CyberChef is this it's like the Swiss Army knife of crypto. There, they will help you for those encoding and decoding those payloads that we're going to need to use. So, with that being said, just before we start to enumerate the box, we're just gonna go on a short break. I'll share the. I will be sharing the walkthrough with you guys. So I realized I forgot to do that. So you guys need to have access to that. I have a walkthrough written. It's not something that I can just share a link, so I'll share it in the in Discord. It's going to be on on one of those pin link. I realized today I wasn't dressed up with anything at the box. Yeah, well, I don't have my swag here. It's all upstairs. We'll have to do without it, I guess. Maybe I'm not gonna be able to hack this box without it. We'll see. I'm waiting on my cap there. I've ordered a beanie, so can't be a real Canadian without one of them toques. Right? All right, so let's start with the enumeration here. So essentially, we're going to be doing head maps, and I like to do a quick one and a fast one. I'll just do the quick one today because well, I don't think that oh, I don't think that this box warrants doing a long scan anyway. Essentially, whatever we get on the short scan is what we have to play with on this one. So I'll use the minimum scan rate 5,000. I recommend you don't use that on a live engagement because it's quite powerful. It will open quite a bit of ports at the same time. Now I'm maybe not connected. Let's see. I thought I did connect to the network. Let me just double check on here. Might need to try again. No, we're still yeah, I think I might download the new VPN file. I think that's what the issue is. Alright, let me just go on a quick break for a minute or two. I'll just pick up my VPN file and resume. I apologize. Alright, let's do that. I'll be right back. Well, we're back. Um, yeah, well, I upgraded my VIP to VIP Plus subscription for December, and well, I can't lie, I haven't used it ever since I upgraded. I had other things that I needed to do, so yeah, just download back that OpenVPN file, and I was able to connect. So I apologize for that. Let me just um, respawn the box, and we should be able to attack this server. Now let me just switch to the presentation mode, and here we go. Now I'm just gonna double check, wait for this instance to spawn in. Probably won't be this IP. While this is happening, essentially I already ran those scans, so if I check the nmap quick, I already have the results, and I have the nmap full as well. Or perhaps I don't have the nmap full, but essentially what we have is port 22, we have OpenSSH, and port 80. That's all we have to play with today. Not a whole lot of toys, if you ask me. Now, if we pick up Ferox Buster and we use Ferox Buster -u, and then HTTP. The IP of our website is, let's see if it's spawned in. Oh. 10.11.100. And I have a document that I was pasting from, but the IP is different. So, all right, if we run our first Buster, we should be able to see what comes back as far as the DNS or directory goes. Now, normally this wouldn't take too long of a time. There's not a whole lot of pages to scan on here, so you can see that I've added the option -C 403. In a normal engagement, you wouldn't put that, and the reason I put it in is otherwise you'd see all kind of errors over here with all the stuff we'd be trying with the wordless, and I just wanted to keep the output clean for the stream, so that's the reason that I've did this way. So we can see right from the start, we see the index. We see in the set page, also a CSS folder, index.php, and a db.php, and our portal. So well, let's fire up our tools and see if we what's going around now. I may have I may have a proxy set up in my Zap, so I'll double check that up just before it comes up. And it's not too bad. It's just last time I used Zap, I was proxying through one of my VPSs, so. This app is just loading up. Perfect. And I'll just reset my user agent to default here. And here we go. Let me just double check that, make sure that the setup is alright. It's asking whether if we want to save it. No, we don't want to persist it this time. And let me just double check the configuration real quick, because we might not be able to do connection. And yeah, disable the proxy and okay, and we should be able to browse the website now. So let's see what we're dealing with. So if the page load up, you can see there's not a whole lot of things over here. So we got a portal page that we seen in the with our Ferox Buster. There was a DB page. Can't see much on the DB page, and if we go back to Ferox, it did find an interesting README file. So let's see what that README file. All right, so there's a couple of tasks that the user, the person that was managing this website left behind. So we need to disable the test account on the portal and switch to hash password. Disable no pass. So I guess there's no password on the portal. Write the submit script. Okay. Connect tracker to submit script to the database. So okay, so we don't have any database connection, so that tells us we shouldn't be even trying to do SQL injection over here. And fix the developer permission group. That's been done. So there's a tracker that's been done, and the developer permission group has been fixed, but there's a test account on the portal and a tracker. Let's see what's that about. Now, if you noticed as well earlier, we didn't get any input here over here at the database. That's telling me that's database logic that needs to be included. Sometimes what the developers does is that they have this the database that does all the database, like include the database function. Does the connection to the database and everything. Sorry. And since it's a very repetitive task, or repetitive code, this is a code you're going to be reusing quite a bit. Developers will use sometimes like a db.php file they can include in other pages. So it might be why we're not getting any output. Now let's go back to that portal page. Portal under development. So there's no testing account that we can see of, but if we click here, we get to this page over here. Now let's just test how that works. So test, let's put a CVE of 2021 44228. To those who might not know what that one is, might want to look it up. I talked about it earlier. And we're going to give a $10,000 bounty. Now, if we submit this, we get prompt with this. So, let's go to our burp and see what's going on in the background. So first of all, we should have had put the site in context. Did not, so just going to include the site in context. That you should be doing the very first thing. But I'm a noob. Don't do like me. So if you notice, everything we've seen here so far, except this tracker deer proof data, that's kind of weird. So we can see here in our history that, let's remove everything that's not in scope here. So we can see we hit that page. If we double click on it, so we sent it to encoded payload. Alright, and what that means, and we got a response back. Alright, well, let's see what that payload's all about. Let's go back in Mozilla. Let's turn our proxy off, and let's load up CyberChef. So if we just gonna get the IP address for CyberChef, and if we go back to that and we copy this blob here, maybe CyberChef knows what that's all about. Alright, it seems to know. So it's URL decode and then it's base 64. Oh, perfect. Now that looks like something we might be able to play with. Interesting. Now let's see if we can run code execution on this one. So the first thing I want to do, I just realized that I didn't save my payload. I did actually. Or maybe I didn't. And I did. I have a couple of payloads here that I've tried on this system. So let's try. Usually this is my first go-to. So let me explain what it does. We'll go in CyberChef here in a second here. And essentially what we need to do, we need to go backward from what this is doing. So let's paste this in. And we need to base 64 encode this to base 64, and then we need to URL encode it. URL encode only special characters. So it gives us this thing here. Now if we go back to that, let's try to replay that request. So right click, open request with the resend with the request editor. We change this data here, put our blob, and hit send. That's interesting. Well, seems like we're able to execute, or we're able to view pages over here. Now let's try if we can perhaps execute code. Perhaps it might be easier if we, there's PHP is an expect module, then it will allow you to run commands essentially. So let's try to run ID. We get this blob, copy this back to our request editor, paste this in. That didn't work. Alright. So perhaps the expect module is not loaded. Now, if you remember, there was a README file on the web server. So perhaps we're able to read that README file. So let's go back to our cyber chef here, and instead of this, let's go to file, and we want to include, usually in a Debian based system, the web server will be in var www.html, and we know that the README file was in a folder called resources, and then readme.txt. Now let's see if we can read that README file. If we can read that README file, that means that we found where that web server is located. Perhaps we can read what. Not sure if you guys know where I'm heading with this, but I'm going to the database file. I want to see if perhaps there's database credentials. Sure enough, we got the right folder. So, alright. Let's try to view that DB file, db.php. Take that payload, come back to our zap request editor, paste that in, center in, nothing. Well, that's strange, because we know that the file is there, but we can't view it. Well, we might have more trick up our sleeves. So in PHP, there's another module that will allow you to run filters on stuff. So if we change this here, and instead of a file, we want to run a PHP, and we want to run a filter. The filter is we want to convert this to base 64. It's an encode, and the resource we want to use is, we want our DB file. Now, just before we go further, I know we're going to need another instance of Cyber Chef, so I'm just going to paste that in here. Now, we'll take this and go back to our request editor. Paste that in, send the request. It's coming back. Maybe I didn't type it correctly. Yeah, I did not. So we want convert, encode, resource. I think we're good. So spelling mistake when dealing with programming doesn't work. It will not work. You need to be on point with your spelling. Alright, we get the blob, and if we paste that in, Cyber Chef knows what that blob is all about. Hopeful. That's fun. Now we got a username and a password. Well, And if we remember the original query we did, um, we don't have it here, but the original query we did, we used the so we did file, and I'll do it back because I don't remember what the user is. And we want the etc password. Essentially, that tells us what user runs on this on this server. What user is active. And we have a development user 1000. So any user under 1000 usually would be like a system account. So that's why you're always looking for user 1000, the first user, and then go up. So development would be our user. Now, since we have a password, I wonder if this admin could have used this password on his user. Well, there's only one way to find out. So if we SSH and development 10 10 11 100, paste that password in. Sure enough, we got in. So we got our user flag. All right, welcome back. So let's see if we can do some routing on this box here. So we got the contract. So over here, I mean, we could, from here, we can run line Ps or another privilege escalation vector enumeration tool. However, I like to do things manual first. First of all, I mean, as a newbie, you get much more experience doing things hands-on because you don't always realize what those tools does for you. I mean, later on in your career, it's good to use them, but if I had